It's amazing to think that it's been 4 whole years, and for you listeners, I would imagine it feels like more, since the Failing Writers lads thought, you know what the world needs? Know what's missing from people's lives? Yes, a podcast with mates who think they're kind of funny, having a chat. And how right they were, as they stepped into the podcast arena and redefined the genre with consummate ease. Here's the Failing Writers Podcast, in association with Scrivener.
John, are you stood trumpet in hand, ready to blow?
I'm not sure how to answer that question, Tom.
Just that we need a fanfare for our newsies.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, you don't often hear the plural of news, do you?
No, I like to use it now and again. Yeah.
Okay, right. Here you go.
Okay, right. Well, first off, we have got to announce the winner of our mildly iffy, probably not illegal, bribing you to post a review or mention on social media prize draw. So I haven't got a hat. So I've just got them in my pocket. Is that a bit weird?
I think it's all right. That's totally legit. Yeah. We're trying to make it look as dodgy as possible.
Well, if that works then. On. I'm going to take them out of my pocket, actually, because otherwise it's a bit, obvious reasons, a bit weird. So anyone that's given us a little mention on social media in the past couple of weeks, be that a nice flowing review or just a few kind words or, I don't know, there's probably a few in here saying nasty things about us. We're not picky. We'll put them all in there. So pick one. Mix them up. There we go. Okay. So the winner is William Hussey.
Well done, William.
Yeah. Well done. You've won a genuine bona fide Failing Writers mug and T-shirt.
What?
Mug and T-shirt.
Well done, William. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And thanks for the nice review. It said, one of my favourite pods, just listening to an older ep while having lunch. I mean, that's not exactly an in-depth review, William.
That's not entirely. When we had a few people that had actually put some proper effort into writing a full review.
But it's still very nice. We'll take it.
It's kind of real as well, isn't it? Just one of my favourite pods.
Yeah.
Not going over the top.
Very, very honest of you, William.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. That's very kind.
Keeping it real. So, I mean, should we pick another one? Should we stick with that one? Or should we pick another one?
Redraw. No.
We'll pick that one. Stick with that one.
It's too late for that.
Hey, you know what we should do, John?
Are you going to say we should do it again?
Yeah, we should do it again.
I agree. I think we should.
I think we should give the people who actually made an effort last time another opportunity because they'll feel shortchanged after that.
After hearing Williams, yeah.
Yeah. But any mention at all. And then you could also win something.
Let's do it. If you so if you fancy winning some lovely merch, post a review, maybe just a couple of lines.
Obviously, it doesn't even have to be reviewed, does it? Tag us in, just go meh, and that'll get you in the draw.
Yeah, you could end up in Tom's pocket tombola. But yeah, be honest. You don't have to go glazing us if you're not feeling it. But just do that. And we'll have another draw. Maybe at the end of May. Do you reckon?
Yeah. You're trying to. Yeah, we should put a proper date on it. Otherwise, we're doing the illegal lottery.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
But maybe we should tell people they could win a house. You know, like these draws they do, and then and then at the end go, there wasn't enough people. You've won a mug. That'd be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if it's going to be illegal anyway,
it's going to be illegal. Let's go the whole hog.
You're not going to win a house,
or maybe you will. I just want to leave that.
Let's just avoid that. Right now.
Anyway.
But that is not the only big announcement, is it, Tom?
No, that's why I said newsies, plural, isn't it?
No, exactly. There'll be some hyper-observant people who will probably have already spotted that we are now the Failing Writers Podcast in association with Scrivener.
Yeah.
We finally wore them down.
Yeah, no, they've been great to us over the years. I mean, they've sponsored loads of our flash fiction competitions, haven't they? So it's kind of like Stockholm Syndrome, isn't it, I think?
So, yeah.
Basically they feel obliged, they pity us. I don't know how it works, but it's jolly nice of them.
So, yeah, you should check out Scrivener if you haven't tried it. They have a free trial thing, actually, don't they? So you can actually try it before you buy it. You get 30 days.
Which I think is really important with it, because at first it can be a bit daunting because there is so much depth to it.
Yeah.
But once you kind of work out that you only need to use the bits you want to use, and the other bits, at some point in the future, you go, I wish I could do this. Oh, I can.
It is one of those things that's worth persevering with, isn't it, Scrivener? Because you do begin to learn more about how to use it as you go. And it does genuinely make the process easier.
Yeah, check it out. You have to now.
You do.
It's kind of, is that legally, I don't know if it's legally binding or not.
I think it is, yeah. If you listen to this podcast, you do actually.
Certainly, you're morally obliged to have a look, really.
Definitely. But listen, here we are, jabbering on, when really everyone's here for one thing and one thing only.
That is true. My poems, isn't it?
Is what, sorry?
The Clerihews Jobby Mortsits that you made me do last week.
Right, yeah.
Is that what people are...
Well, I was actually meaning they might be here for Adam Buxton, who is our special guest this week.
Ah, right, okay. Not so much the poems, more...
Well, I'll tell you what, Tommy. Let's save the best till last, and we'll do it later.
Right? I'll do my poems at the end, after the chat. Yeah, cool, when everyone's stopped listening. Yeah, fine. Cool. Lovely.
So, this week we talk to the brilliant Adam Buxton, who doesn't need any introduction.
So, hear it. Are you doing an introduction?
I am going to do one anyway.
People always say that, don't they? But then it doesn't need any introduction. But
I'm going to do one anyway. So, Buckles, as I like to call him, now that we're great mates, is a presenter who started out alongside his old mate, Hollywood writer and director Joe Cornballs Cornish, who we worked with on the Adam and Joe show on the telly years ago, and then later on XFM and BBC Six Music. But Adam is also very well known, of course, for his long-running podcast, which, if you've never listened, is always brilliant. Yeah. He's so good at picking guests who I personally am really interested in.
Do you know what else as well, John? He does really good jingles, doesn't he?
I know, he does.
Which I think we could incorporate that into our podcast.
we should give that a go, shouldn't we? Yeah, I think he's just a little bit better than mine.
No, give over. Did that come across genuine or not? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
Anyway, the reason we asked him on the podcast was because he's been doing some more writing, hasn't he?
Yeah. So in 2020, he released the Ramble book about his childhood and teenage years, as well as contemplations on his father's death, which doesn't sound hilarious. But is actually very, very funny. And now he's followed that up with I Love You Bye, which is a kind of sequel memoir, which picks up where the other left off.
And when is that out, John?
That, Thomas, is out on the 22nd of May, 2025, which is kind of around nowish, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's even half as good as the other book, I strongly recommend that you go and buy it. That sounds a little bit like I'm saying it is only half as good as the other book. That's not what I'm saying.
Despite the fact it's a mere shadow of the previous book.
No, we haven't even read it yet because there was no advance copy, was there?
No.
When we talked to him.
But we do get some nice little insights into it, don't we, when we talk to him. So let's have a bloody good old chat with him right now. Adam Buxton.
Was it the title of the podcast that really brought you in?
That's what put me off for a long time. But then I got over myself. I listened to a few of your episodes. I admired your commitment to jingle work, especially. Amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Beautiful. You did an incredible song for Jenny Godfrey. You did an amazing song for Jenny.
Well, that's very kind of you, Adam, especially from you. We do find the podcast can be a bit of a divider. There are definitely people who get it straight away, and there are other people who don't want to be associated in any way with even the slightest whiff of failure.
Yeah, exactly. The Stupid Douchebags podcast. No, I don't think I have time to appear on the Stupid Douchebags podcast. I'm so sorry. It's not how I identify. I want to go on the Intelligent Douchebags podcast.
That's the one to get on. Yeah. So, we obviously mainly talk about writing. That's our thing. So let's start there.
Why not?
You've written 2 books now.
Actually, I've written 3.
Have you?
Because there was the Adam and Joe book.
Oh, yeah.
That is technically a book.
And what did that involve?
We worked quite hard on that. That came out in 1999. And off the back of our second series, things picked up for us in 1998 when Channel 4 repeated our first 2 series.
Oh, yeah.
Across like 10 weeks or something on a Friday night in early 1998.
That's when I got involved, I think. Yeah.
Right. And we were part of a lineup that included Father Ted, Ellen, King of the Hill. So it was really an amazing slot.
Yeah.
And after 10 weeks of exposure, we became kind of minor celebrities, I suppose. And then off the back of that, all the wondrous rewards of minor celebrity started to pour in, including a book contract. But we wanted immediately for it to be good. Like, we didn't want to just do a straight cash-in book, because they always say, like, don't worry, dude, it's just a fucking book. No one's going to give a shit about this book after, 2 weeks or something. They're going to be wiping their asses with it. So just phone it in. But we couldn't do it. Because we loved books like the Monty Python books that came out. We had all of those. And there were loads. Monty Python did like about 4 or 5 that were sometimes spin-offs of the films, but other times, like the Monty Python Papa Bock, was all kind of original bits and pieces. And so minutely, beautifully done. Every page there were little jokes and Terry Gilliam's beautiful illustrations and bits of scripts here and there and funny spoofs, and all really nicely laid out. So we aspired to doing something like that, but it meant that we took ages and ages and irritated the publishers.
Yeah, because I'm guessing there was a real urgency from the publishers to just get this out now.
While they're hot, while people will still buy this, let's get it out.
Let's be realistic about how long you guys have in the sun. And it's probably not going to be more than a few months. So if you could possibly pop the book out in that time, that would be great. But in the end, we took about a year and a half or something. And we weren't doing the book the whole time. But I do remember that there was quite an intensive period of months that we did take to do it. And I was laying stuff out on Photoshop as well. I wanted to do all of that aspect.
Oh, so you were designing it as well, not just...
I was designing. There was a designer who worked on it to pull the whole thing together, but I was doing the pages and a lot of the layouts and montages and things like that. So it took ages and ages. And Joe tended to write more of the actual text. I think overall he's probably a quicker and better writer than I am, as far as being able to just...
That's why we didn't ask him on the show, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We thought we'd start at the bottom.
As far as being able to get stuff out and have it be funny and snappy and zippy. I wrote some bits in the book, but they are not the best bits in the book.
And did it go down well?
No.
Did you miss that window? Is that what we think happened?
No, I think it went down fine. They said, oh, we sold 10,000 copies. I was like, is that good? And they're like, it's fine. But, we went to a lot of book signings and people seemed to like it. But I was happy with it. That was good fun because it was mainly spoofs. So films, TV shows. In the book, it was like I did a spoof of the NME letters page. I used to read the NME when I was at art school. And the letters page always used to wind me up. It was sort of like social media before social media, now that I think of it. People were having these passionate culture wars level disagreements about indie bands.
Yeah, attracted a certain kind of person, didn't it? To find the time and the anger to write. Yeah.
Exactly. And it would all kick off on the NME letters page. Artists would be judged for pronouncements they had made, political pronouncements and all that kind of thing.
It's kind of hilarious now you look through a modern lens of social media, isn't it? That you kind of go, I can't wait till next week to see the replies to this.
Yeah.
Just the slowness of it compared with now of explosions on Twitter.
That's right. But back then, one weekly injection of indie band rage was all you really needed.
You could do that and then you could go back outside and breathe air and things, couldn't you?
Talk to other humans.
Yeah.
And find points of connection rather than points of vicious disagreement.
Yeah.
So I tried to spoof the kind of tone of indignant moral superiority about absolute bullshit that didn't mean anything. But then I found out that the NME themselves used to spoof their own letters page every Christmas. They would do. And because the NME letters page was called Angst, and so my spoof of it was called Wankst.
Nice.
And then I met a writer, John Harris, brilliant writer, who I think maybe worked on the NME at one point. And he's like, oh, yeah. Well, the NME did a spoof of their own letters page, and it was also called Wankst. So like, okay, sorry.
Deflating.
Story of my life.
Well, speaking about the story of your life then, what about the new book, Adam?
Beautiful, smooth segue.
Wasn't it?
Thank you. The new book is the continuing story of my stupid life in a similarly semi-chronological style to the first one, Ramble Book. So whereas Ramble Book was a trawl through my adolescence in the 1980s, interspersed with moaning about my relationship with my dad and talking about being a father myself and that kind of thing, and also sprinkling a little bit of dickish behaviour on first-class carriages of Greater Anglia trains. This one is more the 90s. I don't go through every single year of the 90s in the same way that I did in Ramble Book. But in this one, I'm talking much more about me and Joe making the Adam and Joe show and how that came about and what it was like making it and the evolution of our friendship during that process, which sometimes got a little fraught. Mm-hmm. And then what happened to us after we stopped making the TV show, why we stopped making it, how we navigated our life in the wilderness years of not really knowing what to do and how to carry on TV, and then making the transition to being on the radio and eventually podcasts. And so it's about that. That's a thread that runs through it. And then the other more personal threads, I suppose, are about my mum this time. Mm-hmm. I talk about her, and it's really, I suppose I talk about what a shock it was to have her suddenly die on me in 2020, which I wasn't expecting. Mm. And so what that was like in the context of the lockdown, which, I've been trying to write this book for, 5 years. During the lockdown, in fact, my editor got in touch after Ramble Book came out and said, "Oh, well, that went down well. Do you want to do another one?" So I said, "Yeah, okay, possibly," not realizing that actually it would take 5 years for the whole thing to finally get done, by which time there would be a vogue of anniversary COVID reminiscences coming out. So I've kind of happened to have fallen in with that. I guess
there's an annoying element as well, isn't there? If you're writing an autobiography, the longer it takes, the more extra life you're also living that then needs to go in the book. It's like a ever-decreasing circle. You're like, I'm just going to have to stop having experiences for 18 months, so I've got nothing to write, so I can catch up with myself.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what happened. And so there's a few chapters about more recent times, and there's a whole chapter about me trying to make this album that I've made, a music album. And then the intro turns out to be an account of my experience on the Great British Bake Off, which I filmed last year.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of comes right up to date.
And so that first book, how long did that one take you?
That also took a long time.
It was another 5 years.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty much 5 years. I do everything. Maybe it's David. The first song I ever loved of David Bowie was 5 years. And so that seems to have marked out the passage of my life ever since. Although I think that tends to be the case for a lot of things, doesn't it? Like everything seems to roll around in 5-year blocks.
It takes a long time to write a book, to be fair.
Especially the way I write. I think it was around 2016, in fact, yes, when I agreed to do the first book. Actually, no, it was before. It was 2016 when I agreed, because then my dad had died. And I thought, okay, finally, I've got a dead dad book in me, so I can do that. Before then, I was just like, I've got nothing. I've got nothing that needs to be said at all. Not that I necessarily did after my dad had died, because lots of people's dads die, apparently. But it felt as if at least I had something sincere to communicate that people could relate to and would strike a chord, I suppose.
So were you approached by a publisher to do the Ramble book, or did you do the approaching?
No, I was approached. I was approached a few times by different people. And I always said, I just don't think I've got anything that needs to be said, really, or I don't really have a worthwhile story to tell. Because the other thing about celebrity memoirs is, usually there are specific moments that the reader is looking forward to.
Yeah.
I've often heard people say, I always skip past the childhood bits, and I just want to get to the bit where they get famous and they do that thing that everyone knows.
Yeah.
The breakdown.
Yeah. But I never really had that trajectory, and I've just written this book, which is called I Love You, Bye. And a lot of it is about this TV show, The Adam and Joe Show, that only a handful of people saw, really, that you can still find if you search hard enough on the internet, but it's not like it's being repeated regularly on TV. I don't think it was ever repeated after 1998. So it's pretty esoteric from that point of view. But hopefully the story, it's not really about that. It's not like And then we did this thing that everyone knows about. And then we won all these awards. And then I had an affair with this model. And it's not one of those.
I was just going to say, that sounds really cool. That'd be good if it
Yeah.
was that.
It is cool. I like those books.
Yeah.
But no, this one is more about friendship and what it's like when your childhood friendship is tested by DIY television.
Yeah. When's the book come out?
The book comes out, I think, on the 22nd of May.
Now, if people are dead keen to get into it and can't wait until it's released, what they can do is pop onto Amazon, and there are biographies of you on there, which have a face that looks a little bit like yours on the front. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I think might have been AI generated, including content that is basically just a rehash of Wikipedia. How do you feel about those little beauties floating around?
Quite weird. And actually, I saw those. There's 2 of them that I have counted.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. The cover is definitely AI generated. And I know because I have used AI to generate images of myself before for live shows and silly jokes and things. So I'm familiar with what AI thinks I look like. And AI basically thinks I'm about 10 years younger, quite a bit more handsome, with a more well-defined beard and a slimmer face. But it's not very accurate.
It's weird,
and,
isn't it weird? It's weird,
and
isn't it?
then, I mean, it's nice. It's like, thanks.
Adam Buxton, the biography, which I think was out in December. That's clearly the biography of a serial killer, isn't it?
I'd say there's sort of young Harold Shipman vibes from the cover, isn't there?
Good-looking young Harold Shipman, though. And didn't murder nearly as many people.
Yeah.
But the text, as you say, seems to be... Well, at first I assumed it was... Because I bought a copy, probably one of the only 5 copies they've actually sold, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
And I read it, and first of all, it seemed to be just a sort of mashup of, Wikipedia entries and interviews or whatever. But then I started realizing that actually it wasn't. It was all subtly different. It wasn't actual quotes at all, really. Some of the facts were right. The biographical facts were accurate. But when it came to quotes and things like that, none of them were things that I'd actually said. They were all sort of the kinds of things that I might say.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was putting myself down, like self-deprecating stuff, with me kind of saying, well, I think the podcast is designed for idiots and prisoners and people with too much time on their hands. You know what I mean? Like, I might joke in that way about my own stuff. I certainly have done in the past.
Yeah.
But the way that they do it in the AI book makes it sound like someone's doing a parody of me. Like they're actually taking the piss out of me for being a stupid prick. And it's like, this is the kind of thing that stupid prick Adam Buxton would say. And him sort of insincerely putting himself down. Let's do a spoof of that. And if you read it with that in your head, it's kind of a very accurate, very pointed parody.
You say this is a good book?
Well, honestly, I'm confessing this to you. I'll probably talk about this a fair bit over the next month. But this is the first time I've spoken about it. An exciting exclusive, which I imagine will make the front page of all the papers. But the first time I read that spoof book, or no, it's not a spoof book, it's a supposedly real AI generated, whatever it is. I got it in my head like, this is not AI generated. This is written by someone that hates me. And they are putting out a series of sort of takedowns of people disguised as AI generated knockoffs. But actually what they are is sort of brilliant parodies of dicks. A bit like the kind of thing you might read in Private Eye. You know, they do, Craig Brown does these very good parody diary pieces that spoof the voice of a writer or whoever. And I thought, this is a little bit like a Craig Brown takedown. And then I phoned up my agent and I was like, look, I don't know if you know, but someone's written these books and I don't think that they are AI generated. I think they're written by someone that hates me. And I don't mind them selling them. That's fine. Go for your life. Everyone's got to earn a buck. But I wonder if we could just ask them to make it clear that it's a parody and it's not accurate. And my agent said, I think you've gone mad.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like getting you back for all those spoofs and parodies you did in the Adam and Joe book.
Honestly, it crossed my mind. But then I had a perspective bath. And
yeah, there's a lot of them out there for various different people.
The timing of it suggests exploitation of your imminent book release as well, doesn't it, to be fair?
Oh, it's just great, isn't it? I wonder if the person who did the AI thing, it'd be great if they could find out that you actually bought a copy of it, in a way, wouldn't it? Like, kind of...
I did think about leaving a positive review, but then...
I hope he signed your copy with a fake signature.
My goodwill didn't stretch that far.
No, quite right.
No.
At least the title of the other one was actually quite complimentary, wasn't it? It was Adam Buxton, The Art of Being Ridiculous but Brilliant.
Yeah, that was the more offensive one. The Art of Being Ridiculous but Brilliant is the larger of the two. And that's the one that goes more in depth with the made-up quotes.
Right.
The other one is just like 4 pages or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Paragraph chapters.
The cover on that other one is much nicer, isn't it?
I'm sexier on that one, the black one.
No, the black one, you look like a murderer.
But a sexy murderer.
The other one, you look like a cross between probably you and Christian Slater, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, chaps, excuse me, but I've drunk several teas on the go, and that is causing some problems in the Netherlands, so I just need to go and...
Oh, wow, we've never had anyone take a wee break. That's brilliant. John, I think that's a cue for you to write a song to insert into the wee
let's
break.
do that.
I expect you to improvise a wee song while I'm gone.
After too much tea to drinkle, you might need a tiny tinkle. But remember to utilize your brain and thinkle, so you don't spray the room with sprinkle. Even if your wee is little, why not turn around and sittle? Also handy if you need a little, you know what? Gosh, this ditty's just the epitome of whittle. The same applies to reaching writing glory. Keep your sentences nice and sanatory. If you don't, you risk your writing being pory. And I've managed to link weeing back to story.
Ah, beautiful. That was incredible.
Good work. That was fast.
Thanks
Well
very
done.
much.
Well, you've got to be fast in that situation, haven't you? Otherwise, people will think you've gone for a poo.
Yeah. That would have been a different song, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you found the writing of the book. Are you one of those people who will happily just force yourself to sit down and write? Because like reading between the lines, certainly the first one, it seemed like it didn't necessarily come super easy, and it did take 5 years. But what's your talk us through your process?
The process.
Yeah.
I suppose to begin with, it's like going through all my notes, all the things I've saved over the years on my computer and my notebooks, and going, is this anything? To quote Seinfeld, could this be turned into something? Here's a little thing I wrote for a magazine. I wonder if there's something in that. So you're basically pulling everything together that might yield something that could be expanded. And actually that turns out to be usually useless, like all those things.
Collecting all the funnies and then going, oh, that doesn't really work as a through line.
No. And the other part of that process is going through diaries and going through journals. And I keep a semi-regular journal. So it's like total immersion in the past, in the period that you're writing about.
Is that something you enjoy
No.
going back into, or is it quite stressful?
It's
or
really
like, what's
stressful.
Right.
And I don't even know how useful it is a lot of the time. Like I wonder how different the book would be if I just didn't do that part of the process at all. Because there's not that many details, but it feels like I've got to do it. It feels like due diligence, you know.
Yeah, almost that you need to remind yourself of the background to
Yeah.
tell the story on top of it.
Just because you're so aware of how fallible memory can be.
Yeah.
And I have a kind of vague impression of bits of my past that if I actually check them specifically against journal entries is often totally different. Like I can kind of characterize whole periods of my life as being really difficult and painful. And when I look back, it's like, oh yeah, that was fun. And I was having a good time, but it was maybe 1 or 2 things I was a little worried about. But in my memory, those have blossomed and overwhelmed the general impression. Anyway, so that's part 1 of the process is immersion. And that never really quite goes away. There's always moments when I'm checking one fact about like, when did we do the 2nd series of the Adam and Joe show? And did we do the street artists thing in the 2nd series or was it the 1st? And I go back and check And then I end up having to watch one of the tapes because I've got all the tapes of all the rushes of all the shows that we ever made. So I go back and load the tape, and then it'll be like, oh, I can't play the tape on this camera. It's not playing it back. So then I end up buying a new mini DV deck to play the tapes and digitize the tapes. And then I will go down a 3-month digitizing rabbit hole.
Like 3 weeks later, you go, oh, yeah, no, that wasn't important.
Yeah, honestly, exactly.
I wonder why these things take 5 years. Adam. It's difficult to work out why.
I mean,
that's
it is part of the book. I talk about the fact that in 2020, after my mother died, I embarked on this digitizing spree and going through all the photographs that she left behind, thousands and thousands of snaps and slides and prints and all sorts of, and negatives. I bought a negative scanner and started scanning all these fucking negatives and getting involved with that process of time traveling that was so seductive, especially when you're grieving. You just want so badly to go back and escape from the pain of the present, and then the possibility that you might discover new bits of the past via images that you've never seen before, wanting to reconnect with her so badly and feeling as if you might be able to do it via these photos. If I just scan enough negatives, then I'll find some part of her that makes me feel that we're reconnected. But, you know, it's frequently fruitless, boring, and painful as well. Like when you find good photos, they hurt really badly. And then my wife would just come and find me looking all sad, scanning negatives and going, what are you doing with your life? Your children are in the house. You know, they're young still. Your life is still going on. Why you've got to pull out of this nosedive into the past. And that made sense. But I also said, well, I've got to write this book. And I couldn't just dump them in the bin, which is what my wife was suggesting I should do.
Wow.
Do you think some of that helped the grieving process? Or do you think you just end up in down a rabbit hole?
I don't know. I mean, I think it depends who you talk to. I think there are some people who say that it's not very helpful to do that sort of thing. It's a bit like ruminating to an unhelpful degree. But then I did have some therapy around that time. And the person I was speaking to then said that you should sit with uncomfortable and unhappy feelings and memories, and you should see them through to their conclusion rather than blocking them off or shutting them down, and realize that by the end of it, you're okay. So I suppose there might have been some beneficial effects, but there were also many times, I'm sure, when I should have just shut the computer off and got on with my life.
So how much journaling do you actually do then? You were saying before that I think you journal...
Yeah, it's sort of infrequent.
Yeah, infrequently, yeah. Are there big gaps in that, or have you always done a bit as you've gone along throughout your life?
Yeah, there's quite a few bits of my life that are there in diary or journal form. There's chunks that have gone because they just got lost. Like I left a diary with really detailed, tiny bits of writing in rotring pen for every single day. And that was about 3 years or something in the mid-90s that I just left on a plane when me and Joe went to LA to shoot some stuff.
No.
I was like, fuck, that was a bit of a wrench. But the rest of it I've got. And yeah, there are chunks, like sometimes there's sort of a month or two missing. But usually, and especially for the last 8 years or something, it's pretty thorough.
Yeah.
But the other thing now is that in the digital universe, if I wanted to, I could more or less reconstruct every second of every day because I've got the calendar, I've got emails. There's so many ways that you can go back and figure out what was happening. And so that was another way that I would go down rabbit holes, is like I would save all my answering machine messages when I used to have an answering machine. I've got tapes and tapes of all these fucking answering machine messages, which because I was at art school at the time, I would just do things like that because I thought, well, maybe, who knows, maybe it'll be useful for something.
Yeah. How honest do you think you are in your writing about yourself? Do you have a scale of honesty of some things that just don't need mentioning, or kind of, I'll put a little bit of a spin on that, or are you brutally honest?
I mean, I feel as if I'm being as honest as I can be. There are things that I wrote that my editor said, you just don't need that. because it's a bummer.
Too honest.
Yeah, and it's a bummer. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's not the sadness, because there's sad bits in there. It's just like you don't need to share that with people reading your book. You know what I mean?
It's sort of too open, almost.
Too open, too sort of unhelpfully like, what do I do about this? You know, sort of just yelping rather than trying to make sense of things. And I think the most valuable stuff and the most worthwhile stuff to read is people organizing their thoughts rather than just going, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to be honest. And I think the other thing is that you could read between the lines a lot of the time. And and the truth is definitely in there if you're looking for it.
I really enjoyed your first book, Adam, and I think it might have been partly the timing for one of the reasons why I particularly enjoyed it. But at the time, my eldest son had kind of gone into the teen tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so perfect because we were away on holiday as a family, and the book really dredged up all these very vivid memories about, being that age, about the awkwardness and the, just the embarrassment and confusion of being that age. And it was actually brilliant because I think it just reminded me that there are actually, good scientific reasons why teenagers can be massive twats. And it was great. It really it sort of took me back to my teenage days in a way that I don't think I had for quite a long time. I don't think I'd sort of been thrown into that world.
Oh, good.
I think you blank it out, don't you, really? Because it's a weird, not particularly nice time in places.
Yeah. But I wonder how much those diaries really helped, because actually you're not just seeing your youth through the lens of being an adult. It's that actual young Adam talking to you through the years. That must be quite useful.
Yeah, it's really useful. And that would be the thing I would say to anyone who cared about writing or wanting to write or doing anything really, is definitely, I don't see a downside to keeping a journal. I suppose the downside potentially is that you get wrapped up in yourself. And that's the problem I have sometimes, is just I'll start writing too much. And then the next time I think about doing a journal entry, I'll think, oh no, I haven't got time. Because the last time it took me half a day or something to do the journal entry. And actually what you want to do, the discipline, is to do short entries. My big problem was I tend to just describe my feelings a lot. And like, I like this, and I was happy then, and I was worried then, and blah, blah, blah. But actually the stuff that's really useful is the detail about what you were wearing and what was happening in the news and what you were eating and all those kinds of things, and observations about what other people said and what they did. And so to try and be as, outward facing as possible.
Yeah. Draw the picture and let people come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, but it's really hard. I mean, I find it really hard. I'm fairly self-absorbed anyway at the best of times. So, because the other therapeutic aspect of journaling is that you can work out your feelings, and it is totally valid to sit there and talk about how you feel. And it can be very comforting to describe things you're worried about and to make sense of them. But the danger is that you only do that when you've got something to whine about and when you're upset about something or worried about something. And you tend to do it far less when everything's going well and you're feeling confident.
Yeah.
So the answer, if you're not just doing it for kind of therapy reasons, is to just do short entries about, I did this and then we did that and so was there and this is what they were wearing and this is what we talked about and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, no, but you're right. The stuff you would just take for granted and would just not lodge in your brain because it was just normal becomes abnormal and nostalgic and old, doesn't it, at some point? The excitement of getting your first flip phone is something you've forgotten, but written down on the day, that's pretty big deal.
When you look back through photographs, this is the thing I found as well after all my archiving missions. The pictures that are really fascinating or have an extra layer of excitement are the sort of in-between ones, accidental shots of rooms and environments that you never thought to document at the time. Like you wouldn't go around your house taking photographs of every single room with no one in it unless you were selling the house. And actually looking back through those kinds of photographs is really interesting. Like, oh yeah, we had that thing in the corridor, and it's those fucking curtains that always used to slide off the rail, and oh yeah, that radiator that used to leak, and all those things. Suddenly they come back to you and they start building a picture of what your life was like then and who you knew and how you were feeling. And music does that as well. I found in the first book, because I used to love the top 40 in the early 80s.
Did you tape it?
Yeah, taped it. I just knew everything that was in there, every single song. And there was a couple of years from 1980, I reckon, to around 1982, when I just loved every single thing in the top 40. I don't care what genre it was all good. And then things started, maybe when I started becoming a little more discerning, I started realizing like, oh, I don't really like that kind of music, and this is the stuff I really like. But for a while, it was total musical utopia. And then going back and listening to some of those songs, and that is trippy because it brings everything rushing right back. It's amazing.
Speaking of rushing right back, I don't suppose you've got any old bits of writing, any ancient Buxton scrawlings from your distant past? Because I know you keep quite a lot of stuff. Is there anything you'd be willing to share with the class?
Well, I did this thing when I was at school, when I was about 11, I suppose. I wrote a big long story on a toilet roll. And it was called The Bog Roll Chronicles. And it was like a sort of story about what me and my friends would be doing in 10 years' time. You know, every day I'd write a few sheets on this big long roll of pink toilet paper in biro. But I threw it away. I mean, it was really bad. It wasn't funny or interesting. I think it was trying to be funny, but it definitely wasn't. It was just the ramblings of a stupid 11-year-old madman, and was not really interesting. But this letter, I wrote a load of letters to people.
On normal paper, or was it?
On normal paper, typed them out. This was around 1994, I think it was actually, when I thought I should start writing letters to people and try and get a job somewhere that I really want to be in TV and work with people I really want to work with. A friend of mine who knew some TV people said, just write to everyone you like. So I wrote to Vic and Bob, I wrote to Chris Morris, I wrote to Janet Street Porter, because I watched a lot of the shows that she produced, and I wrote to Armando Iannucci. But this sort of sums up what I thought was good writing, and also the kind of second guessing that you do when you are writing a letter to people to try and get a job. And in the book, I've included this letter in a chapter about advice for careers in the creative industry. I mean, I'm not in a position to be giving advice for careers in the creative industry, so it's implied that it's a bit of a joke. But on the other hand, I'm trying to impart any tiny nuggets of wisdom that I've accrued over, 30 years? So this is, 28th of October, 1994. Dear Mr. Iannucci, I am writing to ask you to consider me for a position on any current or forthcoming production. The tape I have included contains examples of the kinds of videos I make and have made for several years, some of which are due to be shown on Channel 4's Takeover TV in the new year. I've also been asked by the show's executive producer, Fenton Bailey, to present an edition. So impressed was he by my overwhelming camera-friendly talent. So that's a bit of hyperbole there.
That's nice.
That I'm sort of chucking in to signal to Armando, like, actually, I'm doing quite well, and I got this nice compliment from the executive producer, but I'm not so up myself that I genuinely think that I have overwhelming camera-friendly talent. So I continue, I don't know if you're in a position to take people on for work experience. I suspect not. Suffice to say that any opportunity you could afford me, writing, researching, or whatever, would be ideal. I will contribute in such an inspired and innovative, yet obsequious and obedient way, it may well frighten you. So I'm really
That's nice.
Laying it on thick there for Armando Iannucci. Trying to be funny, trying to put myself down a little bit, like, oh, I'm really covering all the bases. However, please do not let this put you off. Perhaps I could just talk to you at some stage. Now I'm getting a bit more sincere. Any advice you have for me about pursuing a career in light entertainment would be greatly appreciated. And that's a phrase that I lifted from Vic and Bob. You know, they were always talking about light entertainment. And so I would have been nodding to them. And then I conclude, I think you are the Hootie Mac.
Ooh, strong finish.
And that was a phrase that I'd got off Belle Biv DeVoe, the new Jack Swing pioneers. and they had an album called Hootie Mac, although they spelt it differently from the way I misspelt it to Armando Iannucci. Thank you very much for your time. Yours sincerely, Adam Buxton. Anyway, I did not receive a reply.
It's a bit rude.
And nor did I receive a reply to any of the letters that I wrote to people. So my advice that I include in my book is don't write letters to people. It's a total fucking waste of time. It might not be a waste of time. You know, I don't think it's a waste of time to send out your CV or send out examples of what you've done. But I think probably if I wrote that letter now, I wouldn't try quite so hard to be sort of funny and wordy, and I'd just keep it short, I think.
You'd use something other than Hootie Mac maybe to describe him.
I think so. Or even though I definitely, I knew what I was doing at the time.
Yeah, you can see the thought process. Yeah,
I think I thought that it might not be a phrase he was familiar with.
He might end up looking it up, being interested.
He might end up looking it up or talking to some researcher or other saying, what is a Hootie Mac? And then the researcher would say, oh, it's from Belle Biv DeVoe. I think it's a phrase that means suave or smooth. And he would go, oh, that's cool. So Buxton listens to a lot of new Jack Swing, and he's plugged into new subcurrents of musical innovation. And he's connected with the street where Belle Biv DeVoe originated. None of which was true. I just heard Joe and Louis talking about Belle Biv DeVoe, and they used to say that things with a Hootie Mac every now and again. So I just copied it off of them.
It's a difficult letter to write that, though, isn't it? Because you need to not look like a complete weirdo. But you do need to stand out in some respect because there's another 10 letters on the desk that day from similar people. So that is a tough piece of writing to get right.
The thing is that you never know. Some people would like it if you were being funny.
Yeah.
Other people would prefer you kept it straight. When I get letters from people, which I do occasionally, I really like the ones that are pretty straight and sincere and not trying too hard, not trying to second guess, but they just seem to be written from the heart. That's what I personally respond to, but that's not something I ever did myself. I was always trying really, really hard to be what I thought they wanted.
How much do you judge your own writing? Are you a pretty harsh critic of your own writing, or do you kind of let yourself off? What shape are your books in when they go to your editor? I'm throwing so many questions at you at the same time. Sorry, Adam.
Do you mean how much do they tidy it up?
Yeah.
Not much at all. What happens is I'm combing through over and over again. So they will never... Jack Fogg is the name of my editor. And he's never rewritten anything for style reasons. He doesn't really tweak anything much. He'll just say, lose that whole bit. Yeah. You don't need those 3 paragraphs. Occasionally he'll say, actually, you can shift that bit up here and it'll make more sense. So it's bigger changes rather than stylistic changes he's making. Sometimes he says you're a bit in the weeds there, but usually by the time it's got to him, I will have combed through it about 100 times. And the other thing I do is I read everything out as I go along out loud, because in my mind, the audiobook is as important, if not more important, than the physical copy. So I want it to work out loud. And I've heard lots of other people say when it comes to doing their audiobook, they have a terrible time because they suddenly come up against sentences that made perfect sense written down. But actually, once you start trying to say them out loud, they become very ungainly and there's tongue twisters in there that you didn't realize you'd written. So the tongue twisters tend to happen when you're trying to be too verbose, which I naturally have a tendency to be. And my wife gave me the best bit of advice quite early on in the process and said, like, just take out all the stuff where you're just trying to impress people with your vocab. And she goes, yeah, well done. You know some good words. Well done. But this isn't what people are coming to you for. Just be clear and be straight. And that is a really valuable thing for me to bear in mind. That's not to say that, I love people like Cormac McCarthy when he's conjuring with obscure vocab, perfectly, beautifully used. I mean, wow. I love it. I love bits of crazy vocab that I'd never heard before. But that's not the job that I'm doing, really. So for my stuff, it's better just to be as direct as possible. And if I'm reading it out loud, then that becomes immediately clear.
And on the whole, are you reading that back and kind of nodding to yourself and going, that's pretty damn good.
Well done, Buckles.
Yeah.
Clear the shelves for the awards. No.
So you are quite critical of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is when you read it out loud, the other thing that becomes clear is what's boring. As soon as you can feel immediately like, I'm getting a bit bored, then you think, fuck, that means people reading it will get bored too. But that's something that I've come to realize over the years with the podcast is when I'm editing the conversations, when my heart slightly sinks a little bit, I have to pay attention to that because it's sinking because I'm just thinking this is a bit boring. And probably I could shorten it or tighten it.
Or go to a jingle.
Or just cut that section. But the big thing that you realize is the bits you're most pleased with almost always have to come out.
Why is that?
Because you're thinking, this is good stuff. I'm really writing the heck out of this here. And my dad would be so proud of me just using that word in this context. I'm really using that word in the correct context. This is very good writing. But then when you read it back, that's the thing that jumps out.
Right.
This guy wants you to think that he's writing really well. And actually what's more important is what's behind it.
You see, that's quite a good lesson for us all, I think. Adam, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. It's been really lovely chatting to you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I hope I was not too waffly.
Not at all. No, it was excellent.
I'm a waffler.
It was brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
What a lovely man.
Top marks.
How nice of him to agree to talk.
I think forever he'll go down in Failing Writers podcast history, won't he, as the first guest ever to pop off and have a wee.
I think you're right. I actually feel a little bit bad about my childish wee song. Now I'm saying
There was only one way to go with that, though, really, wasn't there? So,
it probably wasn't our most dignified moment,
No.
was it? Really, but
No.
there you go. We've done it now. It's too late. I feel like as well, if anyone's going to be okay with something as silly as that, Adam will probably be quite forgiving.
I think if you frame it as one of those kind of, it wasn't actually silly, it was like self-referential and it was like playing on the idea
that's
of it
nice,
being
yeah.
silly.
It was ironically
yeah, exactly,
silly.
yeah.
Yeah, that works.
So people can listen to it and go, yeah, You're like the nodding in front of modern art.
Yeah,
It's
knowing
a
nod.
glove nailed to the
Yeah.
wall or something, and it's going, oh, yeah.
Clever. Very clever. I mean, it was pretty highbrow.
Exactly, yeah. Speaking of which...
Yes! It's Clerihews time.
Yay.
I think we're ready now.
Do you know, when we first went through these last week, and I don't know, I wasn't a massive fan, to be honest, but having done them, having sat and done them and worked on them, I think that's probably still the case.
Did you not enjoy writing them? I thought they were a lot of fun to write.
Kind of. I did a bit more reading about them, and I did quite like the idea that they are meant to be a bit clunky, as if they'd kind of been scrawled on a piece of notepaper at the back of a classroom.
Yeah.
Quite like that.
Yeah, they're a bit shoehorned.
Yeah.
Kind of the idea.
Mine aren't, obviously. Mine are very well crafted, but that's what they're meant to be. I've actually done 4, though.
All right, that's good. And you say you weren't enjoying yourself.
Do you want to hear them?
I would bloody love to hear them.
I've done 3 real people and 1 fictional character.
Oh, cool.
See if you can guess which is which. Right. So the first one. Subjects of the first one are King Charles. Dopey face, floppy ears and playful snarls. Of course, to avoid being sent to the tower for a flogging, I'll just pretend I was talking about a spaniel dog then.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nicely brought round.
Big ears and yeah.
That is lovely. I like it. Yeah, King Charles. Very good.
Okay, next one. I wonder if Scott of the Antarctic knew from an early age how he'd cark it. He surely must have guessed at his fate and fame. Kind of unavoidably obvious when of the Antarctic's your last name.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's
I
nice,
quite like
yeah.
that one.
And also really informative because I didn't know that was his last name.
Right,
So,
well, there you
yeah,
go.
clever.
I bent the rules there, John, though, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
Because that wasn't his actual name. But I played on that. I made a little joke about it.
So you got the gist of these now.
I
You
have
properly got the
of it.
gist.
I have. I did enjoy it a bit, I have to admit.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's in the writing.
How about this one then? You'll like this one, John. It'll, you're doing that song about we and stuff and what. This'll appeal to you. This kind of thing, childish humour. I always wondered with Mary Poppins how she'd go about doing her ploppings. So prim and proper. Even thinking about it feels wrong. But I bet she had a proper bloody catchy shitting song.
Yeah, I mean, she will have done. definitely.
Oh, she definitely will. That's what I like about that
absolutely
one. Definitely
true.
will. There's a real truth to it, isn't there? That's what's good about
it's
that
lovely.
one. She would. She'd have like a
she
little bit
would.
about putting the seat up and then sitting down and getting the toilet roll out, whatever. Or
Yeah,
she would have had a full-blown song, 2 or 3 verses. Maybe more if she'd had a lot of fibre.
I love thinking about fictional characters like poopy moments as well.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. You never see them go off for a little
Fascinating, yeah.
little toilet moment. You know, you never follow them into the toilet, do you?
And then finally, I thought I'd weave all of my experience of doing these Clerihews into a final one. A bit sort of meta.
Oh, nice. An uber Clerihew.
Yeah. A certain Edmund Clerihew Bentley, you see, so that's actually the fellow who invented him. Yeah?
Nice.
A certain Edmund Clerihew Bentley, a lack of better things to do meant he would in death have his legacy somewhat embarrassingly limited to cursing the world with his half-assed limericks.
Yeah. I mean, dodgy rhyme, but it's great.
That's the point, isn't it, John?
I see, it's one of
meant to
those.
be. Clumsy little hanging rhyme and then the end one.
I meant it to be a bit crap.
Yes. That's the point, isn't it? I'm mocking his
Yeah, very
form.
convenient. I love it. It's good. Well done, Thomas.
Thank you.
Oh, I really, really enjoyed them. I enjoyed them more than I thought I would, I'll be honest.
Thank you. Good for you.
Do you think with the Clerihew, it's maybe, it's more enjoyable writing them than hearing them?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think it's one of those, it's almost like a Victorian parlour game thing, isn't it? So if you,
Yes, it's an exercise, isn't
if
it?
you do them live, if it was your, I don't know, like your family's Christmas tradition that you do them, oh, come on, gather round, do a Clerihew, you've got 5 minutes to do it, and then you have to, then you'd get something from it, and it'd be...
That's a lovely idea. That's a lovely picture, that, Tom.
I don't think they're set for a big comeback.
No, probably not. But I thoroughly enjoyed them. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you for forcing me to do this.
You're welcome. So they're going to be your poems for our live poetry?
I think those are going to be my backups, aren't they? My desperate backups in my back pocket, just in case.
Yeah.
But,
I think people would like that.
Do you?
They like the return of the Clerihew.
Yeah. I think
people won't have heard
probably
them
need
for a
to
while.
explain it all out. You need like a 10-minute lecture to explain what it is first. They don't stand alone really without knowing.
I don't know. I think these people are going to be like hardcore poets.
Right.
They'll know these things.
Maybe they might know all the different
of course
different
they will. Of course
forms.
they will.
Scary stuff,
Well, Thomas, that was a flipping lovely episode.
wasn't it? Lots of stuff going on.
Thoroughly enjoyed. Maybe too much stuff.
Well,
Overwhelming for our listeners, I think.
maybe prizes, big guests, amazing poetry.
Yeah, big announcements.
New sponsors, all going on.
Speaking of which, we should probably just thank Scrivener one more time
Yeah,
before
absolutely.
we let people go. So thanks, Scrivener, for being our sponsor this season.
And remember, if you are going to get Scrivener, if you use the code FAILING, you can get 20% off. Thanks to us. Well done us.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, yeah. No problem at all, guys.
Right. Come on then, Tom.
Until next time, dear listeners.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello? Where's everybody gone?